Hello everyone and welcome to Nervous Nessie. This is the, I believe, fourth video in my flying series where we talk about everything that has to do with airports and planes and flying. And today we're going to talk about how to get free or low-cost upgrades on your flights. So the first way that you might be able to get a low-cost upgrade on your flight is to volunteer at check-in. It depends on the airline, but whenever you check in for your flight, which is usually 24 hours before the time of the flight, you might get a message at check-in asking if you're willing to volunteer to move to a different flight, maybe later in the day. The reason the flights do this is because they have overbooked the flight and they have the feeling that everyone is going to be on that flight and they want to try and move people to other flights. If you volunteer, then you usually will get a credit. Now, the credits can range in different prices, maybe a $200 credit up to $500, even a $1,000 credit. The way that you want to do this is go for the lowest credit, say the $200 credit, and you're more likely to be able to volunteer. Now, the trick is when you go to take the flight and you get to the gate, go up to the person at the gate and say, hey, I volunteered for this flight. Is there a possibility that you could throw in an upgraded seat for me? The reason why is you took the lower amount, whereas somebody else who took, let's say, a $1,000 credit, they're not going to give you any more upgrades. Now, this may or may not work, but it is a good way to try and get an upgrade, or at the very least, get a credit towards a future flight. Along these same lines, you can volunteer at the gate. The way you need to do this is arrive at the gate anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour early. Go up to the person at the gate and volunteer to take a later flight if the flight you're taking happens to end up overbooked. You want to give them your information, your name, and that way they put you at the top of the list. And you'll have to stay in the gate area right before the flight to hear your name being called. If you're called, then you go up and you say, yes, I would like to do it. How can you compensate me for volunteering to do this? They could give you options. They may only give you one item as a compensation. Maybe they give you a credit, but you can always ask for an upgrade in the flight that you end up taking. So it's a great way to get a free upgrade on your flight. The third way that you can possibly get upgrades for your flights is to join loyalty programs. If, let's say, you have a certain airline that you really like or that you take frequently, join their loyalty programs, and a lot of times you are more likely to get upgrades compared to someone who is not a member of the loyalty program. And if you happen to be a member of a loyalty program, you can accumulate points or miles to use for future flights. Now, a good way to use those points or miles is for upgrades. What you want to do is you want to pay cash for your flight, but then after you've booked your flight, use the points or miles to upgrade your seat. Now, a lot of times by doing it that way, it's a lot cheaper than using points or miles for the entire flight itself. You'll have to do the math and play around with it whenever you're booking your flight to see how many points or miles you would be using for the flight as a whole with the upgraded seat, or how much you would be saving if you just pay cash for the flight and then use points or miles for the upgrade. Another way to get a low-cost upgrade for your flight is to bid on the upgrade. Let's say you've booked your flight, and then after you've booked your flight, you get a notice that you can bid for an upgraded seat. The way this works is you put in an amount that you feel comfortable paying for the upgraded seat. Other people will be doing the same thing, and whoever wins the bid will get the seat. Of course, at that point, if you win, you are obligated to pay for it, but you know your budget and you can set what your bid should be. If, let's say, you lose and someone else takes the seat, then you don't have to pay anything extra. Another tip is that Amtrak trains do this as well. So if you happen to be taking a train at some point during your trip with Amtrak, they do the upgrade seat bidding as well. And after you have booked your flight, start checking your emails up until time for your flight. You could actually get several emails asking you, do you want to upgrade? And when you get those emails, check them out. It could be a low-cost way to upgrade your seat. Whenever you book your flight, check the amount that it would cost to upgrade your seat. But don't do it just yet. Wait a couple of days, check your emails, and then if you get the upgrade email, then compare the prices and see how much you will end up saving. And the last tip I want to give you for trying to get an upgraded flight, you need to use at your discretion. You don't want to abuse this or lie because then it could backfire on you. But let's say you get on the plane and there's something malfunctioned with your seat. Maybe there's no power at your seat. Maybe the TV for your seat doesn't work and it's a long flight. Something is wrong with your seat. Then you could tell the flight attendant and they could possibly move you to a different seat, and that seat could be an upgrade. Now, of course, this is not guaranteed. I actually was on a flight where I was at the very back of the plane, which I don't mind, but as soon as I sat down, a piece of the plane broke off and hit me in the head. And of course, I pointed it out to the flight attendant and I was like, hey, this piece is loose and it just hit me in the head. It was a completely booked flight. And so I couldn't move to another seat and we had to kind of maneuver the piece to get it out of the way. And on that same flight, because I was at the back of the plane, they ran out of food. So the entire flight, all I had was just the little pretzels. There were no meals available. Because of this and the two items combined, they actually ended up giving me a several $100 credit for a future flight. So don't be afraid to speak up if something is wrong with your seat, but again, don't abuse this as well and make up a reason why you need to upgrade, because number one, they may not have seats available, and number two, if they do have them available, they may not actually be upgraded seats. They may just be the same seats, but in a different location. I hope these tips work for you for when you go to try and upgrade your seats. If they do, please let me know. Leave a comment below. I would love to hear that these tips have worked for you. If you have any other tips on how to get upgrades on seats, feel free to leave those in the comments below. And if you'd like to know when the next video in this flying series comes out, then subscribe. But until then, bye!